Hello, my name is Vivek. In this video, I'm going to explain you about PHP basics. If you are a PHP beginner, you are going to learn a lot about PHP. In this course, I'll try to make it as simple as possible. If you have any questions or if you are not able to understand any concepts, please post it in the comment section so that I can simplify it in the next tutorials and the next videos. If you are new here, subscribe to my channel. You are going to get a lot of useful content daily. And if you are an existing subscriber, thank you for subscribing. Let's get into learning PHP basics. For starting with PHP, you need a web server on your computer. You have to install a Apache server and PHP and a database. You don't have to install it manually. You can use a software package like XAMPP or WAMP. You can just search it on Google, WAMP server. You will get the link. Go to this wampserver.com website and download this application. Start using WAMP server. Based on your operating system, download a 64-bit or 32-bit. And you have another alternative, that is XAMPP server. You can download it from apachefriends.org website. Based on your operating system, download XAMPP for Windows, Linux or Mac OS. You can download any version, PHP 7.2 or 7.3, 7.4. Go with the latest version and proceed through the steps. After that, you are done. After installing these applications, you are done with setting up your web server in your local machine. You are good to start with learning PHP. And WAMP server can be installed only in Windows, and you can use XAMPP in any other operating system. After installing XAMPP server, you will see a welcome screen and go to Manage Servers, start MySQL and Apache. For testing, you can just go to localhost in your browser so that you can see this page, Welcome to XAMPP. I'll do a separate videos for setting up XAMPP and WAMP servers. It's a simple to do and you can do it on your own. Here, after installing this XAMPP server, it's installed Apache, MariaDB, PHP and Perl. We'll use only these three, Apache web server and a database, PHP. And if you want to check the versions, you can check the versions here. What are all the versions you are getting? And you can click on what's included. Apache 2.4.41 and MariaDB 10.4.11 and PHP 7.2.27. PHP-MyAdmin is also installed. We can access PHP-MyAdmin and XAMPP control panel. All these are included. FileZilla also included. After installing and starting the servers, you should see a green button like this and a status should be running. If it's stopped, you should restart the server and you can access the configuration pages or config files by just clicking on this configure button. I'm going to show you how to access a PHP configuration file, that is php.ini, and also accessing server configurations, that is for PHP server. We'll see in this video itself. Next, for WAMP server, you can see what are all included here. Apache 2.4.1 and PHP 5.6 and 7.3, 7.4, all these are included. You can choose these versions, PHP-MyAdmin 4.9.2 and MariaDB 10.4.10 and 10.3.20. WAMP is only for Windows and WAMP stands for Windows, Apache, MySQL and PHP. Here you can see Apache, PHP, MySQL on Windows. This is only for Windows machine. If you want to use it on other machines like Mac OS or Linux, in Linux you can install this individually if you are a Linux user. If you are a Linux user, you can use XAMPP server also, or else you can use individual packages to create your own web server. Let's get started with our PHP basics. For accessing our web server, we should create a files. I'm going to create a new project directory. If you are on Mac, just go to applications. After that, you will find XAMPP directory. In applications, go to XAMPP, htdocs. Here I'm going to create a new folder. I'm naming it as PHP basics. In this PHP basics directory, I'm going to create all the files for this video series. And I'm going to create a few more videos in this PHP basics tutorial series. And I'm going to cover most of the concepts and I'll try to make it as simple as possible. If you have any questions, please post it in the comment section. Here I'm going to drag this directory into Sublime Text Editor. Let me open this Sublime Text Editor. Here this directory is opened in Sublime Text Editor. I'm going to create a new file. And for creating a PHP files, the extension should be with a .php. For HTML files, we'll save it with a .htm, .html. I'll show you. HTML file, we'll save it with a HTML or HTM, basic HTML file. I'm just saving a sample HTML files. After creating these files, you can see the format. It's a HTML. On the bottom right hand side corner of the Sublime Text Editor, you can see this HTML. And as of for editors, here I'm using Sublime Text Editors. You can choose a lot of other editors and IDEs like a NetBeans. If you are on Windows, if you want a lightweight application, you can use Notepad++. I'm going to put a link in a description for selecting a PHP editor for you. I'll provide a link in the description so that you can go through all the available PHP editors and you can choose one that best suits you. You can use Sublime Text. It's lightweight and easy to use. Here I have created this basic HTML file with a .html extension. .html extension. I want to rename it to .htm. These are the extensions for creating HTML files, and for PHP files, this file extension should end with, I'm creating with a PHP file name and the extension is .php. You should always create a PHP files with a .php extension, otherwise it won't work. You won't be able to access these files in browser. For HTML, I have to add all this HTML code, and for PHP codes and for PHP files, you can add this HTML along with a PHP code, or you can only add a complete PHP code without any HTML code. You can do both, and we'll be using it with HTML and PHP by mixing both of them. This is a basic HTML. I hope you already know about this basic HTML. This is a title tag. Whatever we put in here, it will appear in a browser tab title. HTML file. Let's load it in a browser so that we can see clearly. I'm going to localhost. I'm opening a PHP basics directory. For XAMPP and WAMP servers, it's already directory listing enabled. If you want to disable this directory listing, you have to create an index file, index.html or htm or php, anything. You can hide these files. Otherwise, this directory listing is already enabled. If you are on a web server, this directory listing may be disabled by your web host. If it's not disabled, you have to create a HTML file. It's a security risk for your web server. If you are on a local host, no need to worry about this. If you are using it in a local host and trying it on your local computer, no need to worry about this directory listing. If you are on a web server, you need to worry about it. It's a security risk for your web server and to your website also. Here I am going to open this file, HTML file .html. Here you can see this title is a HTML file. These are all basic concepts of HTML. I am not going to get into it, and whatever you are going to add it here, it will appear in body section. That's in a browser window. Let's reload this file. Here you can see everything. Whatever we add in a body section, it will be displayed in this part, complete browser body, and the title will be displayed here, and all the JavaScripts and CSS files will add it in this head section, CSS and HTML. And for adding HTML comments, we'll be adding it like this. These are all for HTML comments, and for PHP comments it will be different. I'm going to discuss it in a later videos. And for opening and closing HTML tags, this is a opening tag and this is a closing tag. Here you can see the difference. Opening tag of this title and closing tag for this title. Opening, head and closing. And if you want to open a div or paragraph, it's the same. Opening tag and the closing tag. You should always close these tags, HTML tags. Basics of HTML, in case if you don't know about HTML, I'm explaining you about HTML also. And for paragraph tags and other tags, it's the same. There are a lot of HTML tags available. It's a simple and easy to understand, this HTML. And same for this HTML extension. It similarly works as HTML and the extension is HTML. If you want to test it out, I am adding this basic HTML code, basic HTML file. Okay, testing file for HTML extension. We should see this message after opening this file. Here you can see this title bar, basic HTML file, and the text. It's working correctly. And let's see how we can disable this directory listing. You can disable this directory listing with a htaccess file. It's beyond this scope of this video, so I'm not going to discuss about it. I'll show you how you can disable this directory listing by creating a simple file. I'm creating a new file. You can make it as index.htm or html, anything, everything will work. I'll rename and show it to you. If I reload this PHP basics, it's a blank now. This directory listing is not working. If I rename it to index.php, this should work and this will work. It's working. You can create any file with an index.php or index.html. Don't use files with a HTML extension. Try to use .html for HTML files. And I'm going to delete this file for now. Closing this file. Okay. And PHP files should end with a .php extension. You can add anything here. Let's work on PHP now. Till now, I'm done with explaining you about basic web server and HTML. Let's get into real PHP. Here you can add anything. It's a PHP file. Let's access this file, PHP file. Here you can see this PHP file message. Even you can add this HTML block that I have created earlier. It's a PHP file title. I'm going to add a simple PHP file text in body section so that it will be displayed in browser window. Now you should see the difference. If you don't have any title, this file name is being displayed localhost/php basics and php file.php. If I reload, now you should see the difference. PHP file, and here you can see PHP file inside browser window. That's the difference. And till now I'm not using any PHP. You haven't seen anything about PHP. To use PHP, we have to open a PHP block, and that PHP block should be opened like this. You have to open this PHP block and you have to close this PHP block. If you are not closing, you will get into error because here we have a HTML code. You should close it. If you don't have anything, this PHP code, now you can add this PHP block and you don't need to close it. You don't have to worry about anything if it's only PHP code. If you have any other code like a plain text or a HTML code, you should close the PHP blocks. Here I have opened a PHP block and not doing anything. Let's just add a simple text. PHP block. Okay, let's reload it. It's not working. Syntax error. It's an error, syntax error, unexpected block. That's a text I have added. Block. It's not expecting this text, PHP or block. You can only add this text. Previously I have added this text directly here. PHP file. This PHP file will be different. It's in a body section and it's not inside a PHP block. So it will be executed and it will be displayed if there are no errors. And inside this PHP block, we have to follow some rules. We have to add echo. Echo will be used for displaying text in browser. Echo PHP block. If I reload, now we should see the difference. PHP file. This is a HTML. This text is being rendered outside the PHP block and this PHP block is inside a PHP block. In HTML, we can add any text we want without following any rules. For PHP, we have to follow some rules. For displaying a simple text, I have to add echo. We have to use echo function. This is a PHP default function. It's the simplest function and we'll be using a lot in our PHP programs. And you have to follow this standard, that is using quote marks. Even you can use single quote marks for displaying this text. It's the same. You can use a single quote marks or a double quote marks for this. I hope by now you understand about differences between HTML files and PHP files. HTML, you can use only HTML code, and inside PHP files, you can use HTML and PHP. If you want to use only PHP, you can open a PHP block and you don't have to close this PHP block. And if you are using it with a HTML, you have to use opening and closing PHP blocks. Otherwise, you will get into error. Let's remove this closing PHP block. You can see the difference between syntax highlighting for this closing body tag and HTML after removing this and after adding this. If I save this file and reload it in browser, we should see the error. Syntax error, unexpected / on line number 11. On line number 11, it's not expecting this block. It's expecting a closing PHP block. This is an opening PHP block and this is a closing PHP block. We can format this PHP block with any spaces and any new lines, any number of new lines, and we can make this into single line like this. It's the same. It's the same as a previous one. And you can add any number of new lines. It won't affect our PHP block. It's the same. And you can add a single quote marks or a double quote marks for this echo statement, and we'll see the difference for using a single quote marks and double quote marks, when to use a single quote marks and when to use a double quote marks. And also we have seen adding comments in HTML files, and we'll see adding comments in HTML files. Here I am going to add a few comments for this one. It's a PHP opening block or opening tag, and this is a PHP closing block or closing tag. If I reload, we shouldn't see these comments. As you already know, comments won't be displayed for user. If it's HTML comment, that will be displayed. For PHP comments, these comments won't be displayed. Let's reload and view the source. Previously we are not seeing these source codes. Here you can see it's a PHP file and PHP block. This PHP comments are not being displayed. Let's add another HTML comment here. We have already seen how to add this HTML comments. HTML comment here. Let's reload it. I'm directly reloading this view source tab. HTML comment. HTML comments will be visible in a source code. If someone wants to check the code in a browser or through developer tools, Chrome developer tools or Firefox developer tools, end user will see this HTML comments and no one will see this PHP comments. PHP comments will be used for commenting the source code. So whenever you are going through the code, you can easily understand this code by just putting some hints to understand the code. Not only for you, for the other developers who are going through the code. And it's a useful way to easily understand the code by seeing the comments. It's a good practice to use the comments whenever it's needed. Here we have seen how to display this simple text from HTML and PHP. What if we want to add one more echo block? Let's add another echo block here. Echo statement, it's an echo PHP function. I'm using double quotes here. You can use a single quotes also. It's the same. Another PHP block. Let's see what will happen. I am saving this file and reloading it in browser. Syntax error, unexpected echo on line number 12. PHP is not expecting an echo statement because we have to close this echo block. Then only we can go to the next step. If you are adding multiple statements in a PHP block, you should close the previous statements with a semicolon then only you can go to next step. I should close this statement here with a semicolon, and we can add another echo block. And here I am not adding a semicolon. Let's see what will happen. It's working. PHP block and another PHP block. What if I had another PHP block again? Another PHP block again. If I reload, syntax error, unexpected echo. On line number 13, unexpected echo on line number 13. It's not expecting echo because this statement should be ended with a semicolon. It's a best practice to always add a semicolon. If you are not adding a semicolon, you will get into error with the next statements. When you are adding a next statements, you will get into error. So add a semicolon. Whenever you write a new statement or a new block of code, end with a semicolon. We'll see while writing a programs in next tutorials in this video series. I'm going to close these statements with a semicolon always. And in this video, I'm going to close it with another important thing, that is a PHP errors, PHP configuration file. All this, I'm creating a new file. I'm going to save it as phpinfo.php. Here I'm going to add another important function, that is the PHP info function for going through the PHP configuration. For that we need to open a PHP block, and here I'm adding a PHP info function. We don't have to close this PHP block, and it's always a good practice to close a PHP block, but it's not required. Why? Because there is no HTML or nothing in this, just a pure PHP. We can add any number of statements here. PHP info function. This is a comment, and we won't see this comment in our browser, and there will be a lot of HTML for seeing this configuration file, and always good practice to close this PHP files. Here it's not required to close this. It's not required to close this statement with a semicolon because we don't have any other statements, even though it's a good practice to use a semicolon to close all the statements. Close a PHP block with this and close the statements with a semicolon. Always follow these rules. Let's load this file in browser. phpinfo.php. We'll see a lot of configuration things for PHP. It's a PHP info. Here I'm using a PHP version 7.1.30. It's a latest version 7, and you can use this with you can practice it with any version. If you have a web server with the older versions, you can try it, but you may not be able to use some of the newer functions that I'm going to use. Here, this is a main important thing. Loaded configuration file. It's in applications, XAMPP files, etc. and php.ini. If your operating system is different, that is if you are on a Linux web server or on Windows XAMPP or Linux XAMPP, this configuration path will be different. You can access this file from this directory. Whenever you want to make the changes, you can go to this php.ini file and you can make the changes for error reporting and all other things. There will be a lot of things in this php.ini file. If you don't know anything, don't edit anything, just scroll through it. If you understand anything, go through the comments. There will be a comment section. Go through the configuration options. Everything will be defined there. By default, error reporting should be enabled. You can also check it from here by searching display_errors on, then display startup errors on. If it's set to off, go to this file. That's a path I have showed earlier. Configuration file path, and search for display_errors in that file and make it on. If you have newly installed a WAMP or XAMPP, by default it will be turned on, and you can test it in our application by just going to our page. Just simply remove any of these semicolons except last semicolon. If you remove anything, it will work out. If you remove the last one, you won't see these errors. If I reload this page, parse error, syntax error, undefined echo on line number 13. If I remove this last line, we won't see any errors because because we don't have any other statements after this echo statement. That's the end statement, so we won't see any errors. If you try it like that, you won't see any errors. Just try to remove semicolons or something from the first statement or second statement. Don't remove it from the last statement. You won't see any errors. If you see display underscore errors is turned on, you don't have to worry about it. You will see all the errors. Okay. And next, one more thing, don't put this PHP info file on your live web server. Anyone with access to this page can see all the information about your server and they will know everything. Here you can see this error log file. Anyone can see this path and try to access this file if they know some server hacking tricks. So don't put this file on server. It's a security risk. If you want, you can check it with a different name, and after checking the server configuration, just delete this file. That's all you have to do. And to recap what we have learned in this video, let me just quickly go through everything. We have seen about setting up a web server with a WAMP server or XAMPP server, and you can set it up in a Windows, Linux, macOS, all these platforms, and you can use these pre-packaged softwares, or you can install individually in a Linux if you are interested to install it manually. And here we have seen differences between HTML files and PHP files. HTML files end with a .html or a .htm. Don't use HTML. It's recommended to use HTML. And if you create a HTML file in a Sublime Text or any other editor, you will see HTML here on bottom right hand side corner. And if it's a PHP file, you should see PHP. And only you will be able to add this PHP blocks in a PHP extension file. You won't be able to add a PHP code in a HTML files. You can add any HTML code in HTML files, not the PHP code. And we have seen how to open a PHP block and how to close a PHP block, how to display text with the HTML, and how to display text with the PHP using echo function, and also closing every statement and closing this PHP block, closing every statement with a semicolon, and closing every PHP block with these statements. If you want, you can add multiple PHP blocks in the same PHP file. You can do that, and we'll see that later in this series in the next videos. And also we have seen differences between HTML comment and a PHP comment. This is a HTML comment and a PHP comment. HTML comment will be displayed on a browser, and a PHP comment won't be displayed anywhere else. Only the persons who have access to these files, PHP files, can see this. No one else can see these comments, and this won't be displayed in browser, these PHP comments. And it's a good practice to add PHP comments throughout your code and add semicolons for every statement, and also close the PHP blocks if you are combining HTML with a PHP. And one last thing, that is a PHP info. You can check the server configuration with this single statement, PHP info. Just open this PHP block and add a PHP info function. You don't need to add a semicolon, but it's a best practice to add a semicolon and closing PHP block. And this PHP file should always end with .php. You can check it from here, bottom right hand side corner of a Sublime Text editor. These are all the concepts that we learned. And also error reporting in PHP. Always this display errors should be turned on to see the errors. By default, it will be turned on. If you have a custom configured web server, you can turn on these errors through individual files also. We'll see later in this video series how to turn on from a PHP file also these errors while working on your environment, your local host with XAMPP or WAMP. These will be turned on. These are all the concepts that we have discussed in this video. That's all for this video. In next video, I am going to cover PHP data types, that is variables, strings, integers, floats, about arrays, booleans, and constants in a next coming up video. If you like the content in this video, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, please post it in comment section. Thanks for watching, and do subscribe to my channel. If you are already subscribed, thank you for subscribing. Do watch out for my next video.